Hey YouTube, we are back again this week for another video portion of the Daly Dose Sports Podcast. Hope everyone out there is doing well. Hope you're all staying healthy. Hey, this week on the Daly Dose YouTube video, we are actually ranking the top 5 teams in college football and the NFL, but we aren't just looking at the best teams in the NFL. Because right now, we are going to be looking at the 5 worst teams currently playing in the National Football League. So let's go ahead and jump into that right now. Gonna take a quick drink. You might see my cup here. New Yeti I got. You got to know people, is what I'm saying. You've got to know people. You can have one of these too. You just got to know the right people. And no, I'm not the person. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into the worst teams in the NFL. So let's switch over to the NFL. And no, I don't want to talk about the top teams in the league. Not quite yet. I want to actually start at the other end of the spectrum because there are a lot of really, really bad teams this year in the NFL. We have teams from like just below average to truly, truly terrible. Before we get to the best teams in the NFL, today on our Daly Dose Power Rankings, let's take a look at the 5 worst teams in the league. We're going to start at number 28, and we're going to work our way down to the worst, number 32. So starting off at 28, and I hate to do this, I really do, but I have to go with my hometown team at number 28. And understand this, it's not completely their fault. It's mostly their fault, but it's not all their fault. The Denver Broncos are now 1-3 after beating the lowly New York Jets last Thursday. But the Broncos are just so injured. And that's just so far. I mean, they've lost a lot of people. Think about this. So far, they have lost starting quarterback Drew Lock, best wide receiver Cortland Sutton, best defensive lineman Jarrell Casey, best overall player Von Miller, best tight end Noah Fant, best cornerback AJ Bouye, plus guys like Phillip Lindsay, KJ Hamler, Draymond Jones. The list goes on and on. The Denver Broncos are a walking mash unit, except that none of them can walk. And most of these guys, they're not going to be back this season. I mean, Drew Lock might be back. Phillip Lindsay should be back. But a lot of these guys, they're not coming back at all. Now, some of that is just the luck of the draw. I mean, no one can predict injuries. Injuries are just part of sports. So some of that is just bad luck. Some of that is that the Broncos have drafted so poorly and made such horrible personnel moves that they have no depth behind any of these guys. I will give Denver this, though. They are banged up. They are undermanned most weeks. But they do play hard for head coach Vic Fangio. They don't always play well, but they play hard. So they at least compete, which makes you think Denver is a little bit better than they are. They're not. They're terrible. They fall short every time. So the Denver Broncos come in at number 28. Next up at number 29 is a team that I thought was actually trying to tank this season for Clemson quarterback Trevor Lawrence. They traded away some of the top players on their roster. They went really, really young. But then in the season opener, the Jacksonville Jaguars beat the Indianapolis Colts. So we all started to think, well, I mean, maybe the Jags won't be as bad as we thought they would be. No, they're still terrible. The Jaguars are allowing nearly 30 points per game this season. They can't generate any pressure whatsoever on opposing quarterbacks. And while the offense has some good young pieces, Jacksonville just has so many holes in that roster. On Sunday, the Jaguars lost to the previously winless Cincinnati Bengals. And Cincinnati has Joe Burrow behind a terrible offensive line. It didn't matter. Jacksonville's defense is that bad. The Jacksonville Jaguars come in at number 29. Next at number 30, we have a team that did manage to scrape out a win in week 3 against Arizona, but the Detroit Lions are not any good. On Sunday, against the New Orleans Saints, the Lions, once again, led by double digits in the first quarter. They were up by 14. Somehow, Detroit managed to lose 35-29. It's not the only time. In week 1, they led the Chicago Bears 23-6, and they lost 27-23. And here's the thing, the Detroit Lions are not without talent. They have quarterback Matt Stafford. They have running back Adrian Peterson, but their defense is terrible. They always seem to give up points at the least opportune times, and when the pressure is truly on, I hate to say this, but Matt Stafford rarely comes through. Matt Patricia was hired as head coach of the Detroit Lions to fix that defense. He hasn't fixed it at all. We've been hearing this for years, but it is still true this year. The Detroit Lions are awful. They come in at number 30. Now, next up at 31, there are a number of teams I could put here. I could throw out, say, the New York Giants. They are so bad offensively. I watched some of their game on Sunday. They're rough to watch. I could put the Cincinnati Bengals in here, even though they just beat Jacksonville. They've got a lot of holes. I could put the Houston Texans in here and all the problems they're having. I could say the Washington football team, or the Philadelphia Eagles, or the Dallas Cowboys. I could really just put the entire NFC East right here. But at number 31, I've got to throw out the Atlanta Falcons. And yes, I realize Atlanta has talent. You can sit there and say, oh, come on. Atlanta's not the 31st worst team. Okay, well, here's a question for you. I understand they have talent. They have Matt Ryan and Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley and Todd Gurley. I get that. Here is a question for you. What lead would the Falcons have to have for you to truly feel safe about them winning? 28-3? No. 29-10? Nope. What if the Falcons were ahead 26-10? Again, no. 47-3, 56-0. I honestly would never, ever feel safe as an Atlanta Falcons fan. And for that reason, I have to put Atlanta here at number 31 as one of the worst teams in the entire league, because you can never feel comfortable as an Atlanta Falcon. And here's one quick thing. When we bring up the worst franchises in NFL history, how do the Falcons get a pass? I mean, if I were to ask you right now, name the worst franchises in the entire NFL, in history, you'd throw out probably like the Cleveland Browns, maybe the Detroit Lions. I don't know, I guess the New Orleans Saints had lean years, but they got better than the New York Jets. We could throw them in here. I guess you could say like the Jaguars. You could throw some teams out there. It would take a little while to put the Atlanta Falcons in there. Oh, but they are absolutely deserving of being in the conversation as one of the worst teams ever. Atlanta gets a pass, but they've never won a thing. They've always disappointed their fans. Honestly, they should probably be forced to sell and move to Albuquerque. The Atlanta Falcons are definitely one of the worst teams in the NFL right now and all time. But let's get to number 32, the worst team in the NFL right now. And we already mentioned our worst team already. They lost in the toilet bowl last Thursday night against the Denver Broncos, but wow. The New York Jets are bad. Here's some numbers for you. They are 30th in passing. They are 27th in running the ball. They are 31st in points allowed. They are 30th in points scored. Head coach Adam Gase should be fired at literally any second. And here's the thing, this roster is really banged up, and they're also just really bad. Here is the biggest question that I have concerning those New York Jets, though. If the Jets finish with the league's worst record, are they already ready to give up on quarterback Sam Darnold? Remember, they just drafted Sam Darnold with the 3rd overall pick in the 2018 draft. That's not that long ago. But here's the thing. If the Jets have the top pick in the draft this next year, and if they express any interest in Clemson quarterback Trevor Lawrence, and you're going to think I'm joking, I'm dead serious. If I'm Trevor Lawrence, I'm staying one more year. I'm not even kidding. I don't want anything to do with that mess of a franchise. The New York Jets are the worst team in the NFL, and I don't know if that's going to change anytime soon. They've got a really, really rough road. They've got to figure some things out. And the worst thing, it starts at the top. It's not the quarterback. It's not the coach. It starts with ownership and works its way down, and I don't see how that's going to change anytime soon. Okay, YouTube, make sure that you go over and you check out the rest of the podcast. This week on the show, we do rank the top 5 teams in both college football and the NFL. So you want to see who is on the top of the list. You just saw the bottom of the list. And we also have some sports news to discuss. We have a Daily Dose top 5 for you that you won't want to miss. We are looking at the top college football coaches right now but we're talking about how they actually were as players themselves. So make sure you go check out the full podcast. I will leave a link here on YouTube for you. Hope you all are doing well. I will see you all next Wednesday. Have a great week.